I turn that down. So I'm doing this as a test using my Insta360 camera. I've got the One X2 and I'm using the DJI 2 lav mics. So I've been looking at best ways to basically get VR. I'm trying to do 15 things at once here. Right, I've got enough fuel in the car. So this is a bit of an audio test stroke video test, and I'll run through the setups that I've got while I'm doing this. This isn't meant to be some kind of vlog on what I'm doing. This is more purely for my benefit, but to see how it runs. So I've got the DJI 2 wireless mics, and the sound that you're hearing is recorded internally on the mic itself. It's not plugged into the 360 camera at all. I'm using the Insta360 One X2 for the video. I will switch between the audio from the internal audio from the camera and back to the DJI, just so you can see the differences between the two. I've tried the DJI mic out a few times already, and I've tried it with different cameras. I've tried it on a GoPro a week ago, wired straight in to a GoPro Hero 9 using the TRS cable that comes with the DJI, and the receiver clipped to the top of the media mod. It seems to be the only way that you can run the DJI mic to the GoPro. I also had internal recording from the wireless mic itself, which was positioned near a speaker. So I'd done some video footage that wasn't particularly good, and that was down to the lighting in the room that I'd done the video from. There were a couple of guys that were in the 2024 Paris Olympics that came to the village where I live and gave a bit of a talk. They actually were from the same village, so they came along to the meeting hall, but as is usually the case with meeting halls, they're very hard. There was no furnishings in there. The acoustics were absolutely terrible and it was echoing like mad. They had wireless microphones that were plugged into a massive speaker system, and I had one of these little DJI mics clipped to the underside of a table, positioned directly onto the speaker itself. Now, when I tried swapping between the audio that was being fed directly into the GoPro from the DJI receiver and the internal recording of the wireless mic that was pointed onto the speaker, there didn't seem to be any difference at all. Now, I've got 32-bit float set on this DJI mic just to allow me to manipulate the audio in post-production, and there wasn't any difference at all. So I know for a fact that that was working, wiring the receiver straight into the DJI. Although I think the better way of doing it, if you're going to be doing it in an instance like this, is probably doing what I'm doing here. Don't try wiring the receiver. Don't try wiring the receiver into your camera manually. Just record directly onto your microphone and then sync it with your video and the audio on that afterwards. That seems to be the better way of doing it. The only thing you have to do, like you saw me do at the beginning of this, is do some kind of cue, and then afterwards you can look at the audio on your camera and the audio on your microphone, sync the two up, and then just turn off or delete the audio that's being captured by your camera, because quite often these microphones capture better audio than the internal audio from a GoPro, Insta360, DJI, whatever camera it is you use.
Or one other.
So I've got some, we'll see how this goes. So I'm taking, my phone's connected to the Bluetooth on, actually just hung off. My phone had just connected there to the speaker in the car. I'll call her back and we'll see how that pans out. Probably a bit too loud because I'm deaf.
Hello.
Hello. What's up?
You rang me?
Oh, that's when I was in the house before I set off. I'd pressed your number instead of my mum's.
Oh, right, sorry. Right, sorry.
Okay, bye.
Right. Yeah, bye.
Bye. I don't know how that's working. So, I don't know what's gone on there, but my camera, it's still going. That was weird. It had like a bit of a pause. So, where were we? I was saying about how the audio from your lav mic is usually better than the internal audio from your camera, and I think that's mainly because these cameras are not really designed to capture audio to the same level as they are designed to capture good quality video, and it's a bit of a shame that, but I suppose you can't have everything in one box to the same quality. So because I'm using the Insta360 One X2, this is like one of the earlier models. It's quite an old camera now. I am toying with the idea of buying the X4, mainly because it records in 8K. So the maximum that this does is 5.7K at 25 frames per second. Now, if you're interested in the settings that I've actually put in for doing this video today, the settings on the One X2 are not as they're not as advanced as they are on the X4. So I've got the white balance set at 5,000 Kelvin, and I've got the EV compensation set at minus 0.5. I've been watching a video this morning that recommends to set the EV comp to minus 0.3, which you can't do on the X2, and to set the white balance to somewhere around 5,500 Kelvin for normal daylight recording, such as today. If it's darker, you'll probably want to drop that to somewhere like 3,000 or 4,000 Kelvin. It's a bit of a trade-off with the white balance, in that the darker you have it, the less blown out your highlights will be, but the darker the darks will be, if that makes sense. So if you've got something, so like, because it's recording inside the car, it'll make the shadows darker, but it'll stop you from blowing out the highlights from the outside. So things like the clouds, if you've got that set too high, your clouds are just going to be pissed out. I actually got that the wrong way around. That's the EV comp, isn't it? Not the white balance. The white balance. So if you got the white balance set too high, it makes everything look blue and cold. If you have it set too low, it makes it look too orange and too warm. So that's why you want it set somewhere in between, about 5,500, 5,000. Your EV comp is to do with your darks and your shadows. So if you've got that, usually if you have that set on 0, it tends to be a little bit too blown out. So that's why you turn it down to like minus 0.3, minus 0.5. So doing that, you'll retain the highlights in the whites, but it will make your darks a little bit darker. So a lot of the times with stuff like that, you have to play around with it and find an optimum level of what you want to do. I've relocated the camera. It's now above kind of where the passenger seat is on the windscreen facing me, you'll see that the colours are a little bit different. I've not actually done anything with the colours on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crank the white balance all the way up to whatever its maximum setting is. So this is with the white balance set at 7,500 Kelvin, and you can see it's a lot more orange, it's a lot more warm. If you look around, I'm trying to view this on my phone, so I can't really see a massive difference there. I'll stop it and turn it all the way down now. Ouch, that's a massive difference. So this is at its lowest setting of 2,700 Kelvin. You can see how it's really blue, looks really cold. I don't know, some people might like this for certain things. It don't look good at all to me. If anything, I'd rather have it on the higher end than the lower end. I'll put it on auto and see what difference that makes. So this is on auto. There don't look to be a massive difference between what I had it on a 5,000 and the auto, so I'm assuming that the auto has probably snapped the white balance automatically to somewhere around 5,000 Kelvin. How that will change if the light settings change as I'm driving, I don't know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it back to 5,000. In fact, no, I'll do it a bit later on. I'll leave it on auto, and a bit later on, when I do the same journey back home, I'll put it on 5,000 Kelvin and see if it makes any difference that way. I'm now going to change the EV comp and see what difference that makes. Yeah, that's absolutely horrible, is that? So that's an EV comp of -4. It's made everything too dark, even the highlights in the clouds. So really the EV comp is more for your highlight, low light settings. So if you're going to use it on a night, you'd probably want your EV comp set more around 0, a little bit higher maybe, and you'd have to balance that with messing with your white balance as well. I'll turn the EV comp up all the way to the other end now, just to give you an example of what that's like. So as you can see there, total opposite end of the spectrum. All your whites are totally pissed out. There's hardly any shadow. I mean, even just me sitting in the car, I can see down in the footwell there, it is fairly dark. I can make out what's in there, but you can see how it's brightened that area up. And that's on +4. So I think having the EV comp set somewhere around 0 to -0.05, 0.05 -0.03, somewhere like that. It just takes enough of the highlight out, especially when it's sunny, so that it doesn't blow out your highlight. So if you've got it on a nice sunny day, you'd probably find that the whites just blow out that little bit too much and there's no detail whatsoever. So set that a little bit lower. I mean, obviously in post-production you can crank that up a little bit to bring some of that back, but if you've blown your highlights out totally and there's no information there, you can't put that information back in. Similarly with your shadows, if it's too dark and there's no information there and it's just solid black, you're not going to bring any information back. I'll put this back on -0.5 now. There we go, back to normal. So I've now got the white balance set to auto and my EV comp set at -0.5. For those people wondering what the cable is hanging from the windscreen, I've got the 360 plugged into my cigarette lighter port just because it had no battery on it. But normally with these 360 cameras, as long as you've got them set in the same line as whatever you've got it mounted on, the camera will eliminate that. So when you've got it on the selfie sticks, that's why you see people walking around and you can just see the hand and you can't see the pole, because the camera eliminates that. The first time I ever used one of these, I had the camera on an angle and you could see the pole and it just looked like I was holding a stick but not the camera. So what you need to do is angle the camera on a direct line with whatever you've got it mounted on. The problem I've got with this is that I've got it on a suction mount stuck to my window, and the suction mount's on a bit of an angle because it's designed more for GoPros, etc. So on that note, we'll set off and see how this video goes. There'll probably be a little bit of waffle in here that I'll probably end up deleting, but as I said when I first started this video, I'm doing this primarily as a test for myself to see what the video and audio quality are like when synced together using the DJI Mic 2 and the Insta360 One X2. I have been looking at upgrading my 360 camera purely because what I'm trying to achieve in the long run is perfect 360 VR video when I'm out on my bike, on my motorcycle. I don't know how well this video will come out. I've just set it to record in HDR video in the 5.7K. It has actually knocked it down from 30 frames per second to 25. That seems to be the maximum you can record at. You'll also notice that I've put my DJI Mic 2 mic, I've clipped it to my hat just to see if there's any difference in the audio quality, having it positioned somewhere differently. For some reason though, when I'm monitoring this on my phone, I've got no visual as to what's going on. I can only think that's because of the, it actually says preview is not supported for this mode. So if you watch this video that you're watching now with the camera on my hat is actually HDR video. I don't know if there'll be any difference in the quality of either the audio or the video for this section of video, but again, this is just to highlight what it's like using the Insta360 One X2 360 camera, and I'm assuming that it will have the same settings that I'd input for the normal video. So I'd actually set it on auto white balance, or on a normal sunny day you probably have that somewhere around 5000 Kelvin, and the EV comp I'd set that to -0.5. I'm going to stop the video now just to check, and the little bit that you're going to see after this will be me either confirming or changing those settings to the settings that I've just reeled off. So as I suspect, I've just checked the video settings on the HDR, and the only setting that you can alter is the white balance. So I'm assuming that the HDR element of this setting automatically sorts out the EV comp. Now, unless I'm mistaken, if I remember rightly, for messing around with doing manual HDR photography on a DSLR camera, how it normally does HDR is it will take photos, and this is for photography, stills, not so much video, but it normally takes, it'll take 3 photos, one at your EV comp of 0, and then one at a minus setting and one at a plus setting, and it combines all 3 to create that HDR effect. As far as I'm aware, somebody might want to put in the comments underneath and correct me either way on that. I'm assuming the same would be for video as well, which is obviously why I'm assuming you can't change the EV comp setting in this setting. The downside is that obviously with the video that I'm doing on the Insta360, you can't get in and change that. Whether this is something that they've changed on newer models, this is the One X2, here's the X3 and the X4, so who knows. So I've set the video going again in HDR mode just to see how not being able to manipulate the EV comp and having the white balance set at 5000 Kelvin, how it will respond to changing light conditions. such as we are now. So I'm going through a tunnel. The light has obviously dipped considerably, and then as we come out, I've noticed this when I've used my GoPro before, that having auto white balance, it'll nicely tone it down, but when it comes back into light such as now, you tend to get that burst and everything kind of just gets pissed out initially until the white balance regulates it back. I've never really been happy about that. I suppose if you're somebody that's wanted to use something like that as a bit of a transition between scenes, it's quite useful without really having to do anything, but other than that, it's not a massive thing really.